After a long battle against a powerful crime syndicate, police officer Henry and brave Lytuky finally find peace. Their love, born in danger and strengthened by trust, leads to a heartfelt wedding once justice is served. Free from fear, they begin a new life together, surrounded by the blessings of Lytuky's grandparents and foster mother. From shadows to sunlight, this is a story of courage, healing, and unbreakable love. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories like this. The air was crisp and calm, a rare kind of silence that only follows the end of chaos. For months, the city had lived in fear under the shadow of a ruthless crime syndicate. Their influence stretched deep through alleys, businesses, even government offices. No one dared speak out, not even in whispers. But one man did. Detective Henry. And by his side, always in silence but never in weakness, stood Lytuky. She had once been a witness, an innocent girl dragged into the underworld's twisted game through no fault of her own. But as the storm grew, so did her strength. Henry protected her, yes, but she also gave him something he never expected in the darkness: hope. It was in the quiet glances they shared during stakeouts, in the steady trust between them while danger lurked behind every turn. And in that fragile bond, something deeper bloomed. The final arrest came like a thunderclap. Henry and his team cornered the syndicate leader after a grueling operation that spanned weeks. The moment the cuffs locked around the man's wrists, the entire city seemed to breathe again. Reporters crowded the streets, people lit incense at temples, and children laughed in parks that had once echoed with silence. Justice had won, and with it, Henry and Lytuky were finally free. They didn't want a grand wedding. After everything they had endured, simplicity felt sacred. On a sunny afternoon, surrounded by trusted friends and a few family members, the couple stood hand in hand in a small garden tucked behind a countryside villa. Lytuky wore an elegant white dress, minimal and graceful, like her. Henry, in a crisp suit, looked at her as if the world had stopped just for this moment. No sirens, no shadows. Just them. When the officiant asked if he would take her hand forever, Henry didn't hesitate. "I already have," he said, his voice warm and steady. Lytuky, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, whispered her vow back, "I never stopped believing in you." The guests clapped, some cried, and petals floated through the air as they kissed, finally not in secrecy, but in celebration. Their wedding wasn't just the union of two souls. It was a symbol for the city, for the justice system, for all those who still dared to love in difficult times. It proved that no matter how dark the road may be, love can not only survive, but lead the way. Later that evening, they shared their first dance under fairy lights, with the scent of blooming jasmine in the air. Henry pulled Lytuky close and murmured, "We made it." She smiled and leaned into him, replying softly, "And we're just getting started." For the first time in what felt like forever, Lytuky could walk down the street without looking over her shoulder. The whispers were gone, the cold stares, the feeling of invisible eyes watching her every move. The city that had once been a maze of shadows now basked in a golden light. It wasn't just the sun returning after weeks of rain. It was peace, the kind of peace that settles deep in the bones, slow and healing. After the crime syndicate collapsed, arrests rippled through the city like falling dominoes. The ones who once ruled from behind closed doors were now behind bars. Corrupt officials were exposed, businesses reclaimed, and people slowly found the courage to live normally again. And in the quiet aftermath, Henry and Lytuky stepped into a new chapter, one not marked by hiding, but by rebuilding. Their apartment, tucked on the edge of the city near a riverbank, had always been their refuge. But now, it finally felt like home. The walls that once shielded them from danger now held only laughter and soft music. Lytuky brought life into the space, fresh flowers in glass vases, morning coffee with cinnamon, quiet evenings with books and blankets. And Henry, the ever-watchful protector, now allowed himself to relax, his badge no longer a weight but a reminder of what he'd fought for. Sometimes, they would sit by the balcony just before sunset. Lytuky loved those moments, the light casting golden patterns across Henry's face, the warmth of his hand in hers. "Do you miss it?" she asked one evening, her voice almost a whisper. Henry didn't answer right away. He took a deep breath, watching the river flow beneath the fading sky. "I don't miss the danger," he said finally. "But I'll never forget what it took to get here." He turned to her, eyes gentle. "You were my reason to keep going, to Kentucky. Now, you're my reason to live fully." The words stayed with her, long after the stars came out. For so long, she had existed in survival mode, never letting her guard down, never daring to dream beyond tomorrow. But Henry gave her that freedom. He didn't just protect her, he believed in her. And slowly, she began to believe in herself too. Together, they began to build a future. Lytuky took art classes at a small local studio, rediscovering her love for watercolor painting. Her hands, once shaky from fear, now created soft landscapes and delicate portraits. Henry, on his days off, would sit in the corner of the studio, watching her with quiet pride as he sipped his tea. He had his own journey, too. After the case closed, Henry was offered a promotion, head of a new anti-corruption task force. But he paused. For once, he wanted to choose life, not war. Instead, he asked for a sabbatical, a break to breathe. And with Lytuky, he did just that. They traveled for a short while, small places with kind people, fresh air, and no headlines. They didn't need much, only each other. In every ordinary moment, morning grocery trips, Sunday laundry, late-night movie marathons, there was something extraordinary, peace. A peace they had earned. A peace they were determined to protect, not with guns or warrants, but with love, trust, and shared healing. Their world was quiet now. But in that quiet, everything bloomed. The garden was quiet now, the last of the guests having drifted away, leaving only laughter in the air and petals on the stone path. The sun had dipped low, casting a soft amber glow over the trees and the lantern swaying gently in the evening breeze. Henry and Lytuky stood hand in hand beneath an arch of white roses, still caught in the warmth of the day, their wedding day. But it wasn't just any wedding. For those who had known Lytuky since she was a child, this moment meant far more than the ceremony. It was a full-circle journey and ending, yes, but also a long-awaited beginning. Lytuky's grandmother was the first to step forward. Her back was slightly bent with age, but her eyes sparkled with youthful pride. She reached out, cupping Lytuky's cheek with a wrinkled hand, brushing away a tear the young woman didn't realize had fallen. "You were born in a storm, child," her grandmother said, her voice trembling. "But even in thunder, you were always the light. And today, you shine more brightly than ever." Lytuky held her grandmother's hand tightly, tears slipping freely now, no longer from fear or sorrow, but from the overwhelming gratitude of being seen, being loved, being safe. Next was her grandfather, who rarely spoke much but had always been her silent protector. He cleared his throat, adjusting his jacket as if to mask the emotion in his voice. "Henry," he said, turning to the man beside his granddaughter, "you kept her safe. For that, you are already family." Henry bowed his head respectfully, humbled. "Thank you, sir. I will continue to protect her, with all that I am." Then came the one whose presence moved Lytuky the most, her foster mother. A kind-hearted woman who had taken her in during the darkest chapter of her life, raised her not with luxury, but with love. She approached quietly, her eyes already red with emotion. She took both of Lytuky's hands and looked into her eyes. "I remember when you came into my life, small and scared and unsure of your place in the world. But I always knew, deep in my heart, that you were meant for something greater." She smiled softly. "And look at you now, a woman full of grace, courage, and love." She turned to Henry and gently placed her hand over his. "Take care of each other. Life will test you, but never forget what brought you here: faith, resilience, and love." Lytuky couldn't speak. She simply wrapped her arms around her foster mother in a long, trembling embrace. It felt like being a child again, but not the child who had to run and hide this time. She was a daughter who had found her way home. As the sky darkened and fireflies began to dance among the garden leaves, the family gathered for one last toast. They raised their glasses not just to the newlyweds, but to the triumph of love over hardship, of hope over fear. To Henry and Lytuky, her grandfather said, lifting his cup, "May your days be peaceful, and your hearts always strong." "To love that never gives up," her grandmother added. "And to the family we choose," her foster mother said, looking lovingly at both of them. In that moment, with the stars beginning to twinkle above and the scent of jasmine in the air, Henry and Lytuky knew they were no longer just survivors of a dark past. They were builders of a bright future, one surrounded by the blessings of those who had walked with them through every storm.